We're very grateful to have you all be taking the time to join us today. Like I said, we're going to give it just a couple seconds, couple minutes to let more community members join us today. We have a great lineup of partners. So just grab your waters, grab your lunches if you're heating anything up, and get comfy with us. We'll start in just a sec. Yeah, you can leave it on this first slide. And I think 12:01 sounds like a good starting point. I'll just introduce myself first. My name is Charlotte Fall. I'm the Resilient Palisades program coordinator for the Electrify the Rebuild campaign. And so that's why we're here today. I want to give a first huge thank you to all of you for showing up today. I know that Zoom is not the most fun place to be, especially at your lunchtime potentially. So I just want to say thank you for engaging with us and being here, taking the time to learn a little bit more about how we can move the rebuild forward. So I am very excited to have some awesome, extraordinary partners with us today to help us learn. We are going to have them help us learn how electrification can protect our health, build a stronger future, strengthen our community, and maybe this is one of the most, probably right now, everybody's feeling this is the most important, to save us money. So we are joined today by Rewiring America. They're going to be our electrification experts for the day. We're also joined by Zach Swank from Boulder County's Office of Sustainability. He helped design a really important a sustainable rebuild program for the county after the 2021 Marshall Fire. And so we have some great experience to learn from there. We're also joined by LADWP and their HOME-LA reps. So we're really excited to be able to learn about how we can make this a more affordable way forward for us. And they'll be able to answer questions then about that. And then the last thing I'll touch on this slide here is just setting the tone. Like for today, we know at Resilient Palisades that firsthand, like none of you signed up for rebuilding a home. Probably never dreamed of wanting to do it in your lifetime, let alone like this year. And so we just want to give you all a lot of credit for taking on the step of being here today, for taking on wanting to learn a bit more and having the willingness to learn how to make your home safer, more affordable, and just healthier for the community all along the way. Because we know it is an overwhelming experience right now, but we're here for you. So know that no matter like where you are showing up from today, no matter what stage of rebuilding that is, whether you're like looking at design plans, you have your empty foundation lot, you're just interested in replacing one piece of technology in your home maybe that could be still standing, we're here for you. This is the right place for all of your questions. You're in a safe place, so please relax as much as you can. Know that this is for neighbors. Want you to be able to put any questions you have in the chat along the way, and we'll get some of those answered along the way, but we'll also be saving time at the very end to answer all the questions and open it up for some discussion as well. So with that, I'll ask you to switch to the next slide. And I'll just share a little bit about who Resilient Palisades is to kick us off. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we were founded by residents of Pacific Palisades in 2019. So we've been here for quite a while, and we're still led by a lot of those same volunteers that started us off today. We believe in taking on the global climate crisis via local action. And so that means our mission is really to engage Palisadians, local businesses, schools, and other organizations through projects to help the community develop in a more sustainable way and fight the climate crisis. But I do want you all to know that this isn't going to be a talk about the climate today. This is really going to be our partners focusing on how it can make a safer, healthier, and more affordable community. But I just want you all to know that that's a little bit about why we are inspired to have this, this webinar today. And then the last bit about Resilient Palisades I'd love to share is about our history. So we have run a variety of campaigns along the since 2019. We've mobilized over 200 resident volunteers. We've been able to transition 50 Palisades homes to solar. We've been able to switch gas-powered leaf blowers to all electric that serve over 1,000 homes in the Palisades. We've been able to switch countless homeowners to using reusable produce bags instead of plastic. And now we're working on rebuilding. And a lot of that looks like removing invasive plants to help with brush clearance. So we're building more um, ecologically healthy communities along the way. And my campaign, you can switch to the next slide here, is the Electrify the Rebuild campaign. And it was a campaign envisioned by the Pacific Palisades community members on Resilient Palisades board. Our vision is to see that Palisades becomes a national model for this post-disaster recovery. And so we want to be rebuilding resiliently. We want to be regenerative with our neighborhoods, building with clean energy and electrification. And so that looks like if tragedies are happening in communities, again, outside of the Palisades, they can look towards us for inspiration, the same way that we're looking towards Zach and Boulder for some inspiration now, too. And so we're grateful to have Zach here to learn from his experience as well. So I want you all to know that this, again, is a safe space for us all to be Palisadians together, learning how we can create a healthier future for our community, for our nation, that is, and also for the globe, keeping in mind. We do have a role to play in strengthening the Palisades, but also our country as a whole. And so with that, I will just invite you all to listen with an open mind and be honest with your thoughts and be honest with your questions along the way too. So with that, I will turn it over to Rahul with Rewiring America. Thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte. I really appreciate it as well. And thank you again all for being here. I'm Rahul Young. I am Rewiring America's head of community engagement. Been at the organization for about 3 years and based in San Francisco. Um, just wanted to give you a little bit of context. So Rewiring America, also a 501c3 nonprofit focusing on residential electrification. And we've got folks who work on this at a policy level and creating digital products, communications and marketing. And then the team that I'm a part of is focusing on community implementation to make sure that all of that great work actually leads to, great electric equipment going into folks' homes when they feel ready for that. Our mission as an organization is a prosperous all electric America. And the way that we approach that is to really focus on individual households and think through what's going to work to make electrification affordable, desirable, and better for each household. And again, just to reinforce something that Charlotte said at the beginning, of course, this is our mission. This is what my professional career is devoted to, but we're not here to twist your arm or tell you what to do. We can only imagine the tragedy that everybody has been working through and the many different challenges that you're balancing at any given time to rebuild. And so our hope, as Charlotte said, is just to provide information that's helpful for you in the rebuilding process and to be able to be a resource to answer your questions, but ultimately to kind of continue to give each household the agency to decide what they feel like is best for them in the rebuilding process. So with that, but why are we focused on electrification? What are the benefits of them? Here are some of them. I think in a lot of cases, when you rebuild the right way, all electric, it can help lower your energy bills over time. It can help lead to cleaner air, both inside your home and throughout your community as well. It's really about increasing the overall comfort of your homes. It creates jobs throughout your community around electrification. It really is all about creating a healthier community in so many ways and ultimately creating stronger and more resilient households. Sometimes, when you talk about electrification, it can feel overwhelming. There's so many different components to these things, but really it can be fairly simple. We're really, when it comes to electrification, you're really trying to boil it down to these five questions. How do you heat your home? How do you heat your water? How do you get around? How do you cook your food? And where does your electricity come from? And to distill that into what technologies we're talking about that we'll be going a little deeper on, we're talking about induction stoves and air source heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, heat pump dryers, electric vehicles, and then solar panels and battery storage. So let's take each of these one by one. And, again, our goal here is just to give you some basic information about each of these things, and then happy to, in the Q&A, go deeper on these things and also work with Charlotte to provide you resources so that if you really want to go deep on exactly how each of these things work, we could give you as much information as you'd like to have. But for now, we'll try to keep it, reasonably high level. So we're starting with how you heat and cool your house, and we're talking about heat pumps. So the important thing to know about a heat pump is that it's a single electric appliance that can replace both a traditional air conditioner and a heating system, and provide both of those services, heating and cooling, in one machine. And it's really, one way to think about it is almost like kind of a two-way air conditioner. Heat pumps use that same technology to move heat from one place to another. So when it's cold outside, it's finding kind of the heat between molecules outside to bring it into your home. And then when it's hot in your house and you want it to be cooler, it helps move the heat from inside of your house to outside of it. Um, and it really just kind of works both ways, depending on the season. Heat pumps in general are 3 times more energy efficient than other heating and cooling systems like gas furnaces, oil heating, and central air. And just to give you kind of some round numbers around some of the potential savings, and again, of course, all of this varies by the specifics of a household and the particular place that you're in, but just to give you a general sense, it can be, hundreds of dollars that a household can save per year when they upgrade to a heat pump. There are also significant health savings, again, around the air quality kind of in and around your home that can be truly beneficial, and just by having kind of the added comfort in your home. And then again, there really are significant air quality benefits when you're not burning fossil fuels in a neighborhood too. And that leads to kind of, premature deaths and other health benefits that really do stack up to have major impacts for communities. Um, One of the first questions, of course, is like, okay, I get it, heat pumps, I see the benefits, but how much is that going to cost? And so, again, these are just rough numbers. Don't quote us on any of these things. Of course, like everything we're talking about here, when you're rebuilding, you're going to be talking with your builder about various choices. But just to give you some round numbers, here's some ranges of estimates that we see before incentives, and we'll be talking a lot about incentives that will be available to help reduce these costs. But it gives you a sense, kind of depending on the size of your home and therefore the size of your system, the kind of range of costs that we generally see in California. Uh, okay. Um, Moving on to the next technology. So how do you heat your water? Heat pump water heater is, again, a very efficient way to be able to heat your water. So, similarly to a heat pump, it basically works by pulling heat out of the surrounding air, transferring it into the water inside of the tank. So because it works that way, again, rather than kind of, firing up, using gas to kind of actually heat the water directly, it again allows it to use much less energy than traditional electric water heaters and gas water heaters. And because it just kind of has a more efficient process to be able to heat the water. Similarly, there can be significant savings, on the order of a couple $100 potentially when you upgrade to a heat pump water heater. Similarly, there's also the health savings of, again, not burning fossil fuels in your garage or next to your house. And again, similarly, kind of national avoided, premature deaths and other health benefits when you have kind of the improved air quality of switching to heat pump water heaters. Next up, we have the induction stove. So an induction stove, this again is, of course, is how you cook your food. The way the induction stoves works is by it uses magnets to send energy directly to pots and pans, instead of traditional cooktops that either use inefficient electric coils or burn methane gas. So there's a lot of advantages to this. It can be safer, so you don't have the issue of kind of potentially getting, burned on a hot stovetop. It's healthier, lots and lots of gas stoves often have very kind of micro leaks that can happen. And so just not having, burning gas in your home or having potential leaks has a real health benefit for your family. It cooks faster. So I think one of the things that people first notice when they switch to an induction stove, when they're boiling water to make coffee or make pasta or do some cooking, is that they cut, their time often in half in terms of how quickly it'll heat the water up. I've actually found with the induction stove in my house that I have to change the kind of sequence of things of how I cook for my family because I'm used to having a long time to chop all the vegetables and things like that while I'm firing up the water. And it happens so quickly that I've got to do that stuff ahead of time. So that's kind of an amazing benefit. And I think one thing I'll add, since I have two kids, is that it is so much easier to clean because it's basically just kind of a flat top that you can do. And I don't have to kind of dig deeply into kind of the little nooks and crannies of a gas stove when I need to clean up and when we spill things on the stove, which in my house happens on a daily basis. Um, I think one of the things that we're increasingly seeing is that when folks are able to switch from a gas stove to induction stove, they're really reducing the risks for childhood asthma. So again, there's a indoor air quality impact of kind of switching off of gas to electric. And then again, there's a safety and resilience part of this where you can have, be able to feel confident that you don't have any risk of gas leaks because you've capped the pipe, that gas pipe that used to go into your home that you used for your cooking. Moving on to the drying of clothes. So there are heat pump dryers. There are also, of course, traditional electric dryers that have existed for a long time. And so there's both choices, if you decide that you don't want to have gas coming into your home. The technology is similar to some of the other technologies we've talked about. Heat pump dryers work by taking heat from the air around the machine and they use that to dry your clothes. So instead of having to generate hot air and then vent it outside, you don't actually need a vent for heat pump dryers. You're recycling existing heat, and therefore that's what's getting to the efficiency of reducing energy consumption. And again, because of that efficiency, you can get to some savings per year. And similarly, again, once more by not having a gas pipe coming into your home, you can actually be improving the indoor and outdoor air quality around your home too, and therefore seeing the impacts of that can happen throughout a community. And they are significantly more efficient. So again, as we mentioned, it doesn't require ventilation, so you can really place it anywhere in your home. And they are, often like quite easier on your clothes. People tend to notice that their clothes actually last longer in heat pump dryers because they're efficient, they're quieter, they're not pushing, they're not using the same amount of energy that often can then start to fade your clothes over time. They do, in many cases, often take longer. So it's an important thing to know about heat pump dryers. And again, depending on your family situation, it's just good to go into those decisions. And again, these are things that you can look to when you look at individual things. But that is one of the trade-offs that happens with heat pump dryers. And then moving on to rooftop solar and battery storage. So this is really getting at kind of where does that electricity come from? Again, we're blessed in California with an increasing amount of renewable energy on the grid in general for folks, but it's always great to be able to supplement that when it makes sense with solar on your roof, if your roof's appropriate for it, and then battery storage for resiliency as well. So the technology here that I'm sure folks are quite aware of is that rooftop solar systems use solar voltaic panels to turn sunlight into electricity. The panels can be installed on your roof or potentially your yard, depending on the situations of your house, and can save you thousands of dollars a year. So again, this is helping use the solar to power your electrical appliances and the grid. In a lot of cases, people are increasingly choosing to kind of pair that rooftop solar with battery storage so that they can be able to kind of use that power generated by the sun for later use when they need it at night. And then in most cases, is certainly the case in most of California, you're able to sell the electricity back to your utility through net metering. Um, so again, there's a resilience component of this. When you pair solar and storage together, it can actually lead to bill credits depending on how you're tied into your grid, and it's helping make sure that you can have electricity available around the clock. Charlotte, did you want to jump in for a second and just talk about
Yeah,
the project
I
here?
would love to. I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the work that Resilient Palisades has already done, like I mentioned. We did launch our Pali microgrid project a few years ago, and our aim was to increase local solar in the Palisades, reduce emissions, and help everybody save money and increase resiliency. And so we were able to get over 50 homes installed with solar before the fires, like I said. We have done this grunt work already to be able to vet solar installers. And so we went through this really rigorous, the clean energy resilience team at Resilient Palisades went through this really rigorous process of vetting over 15 applicants. And we were able to pick these four that you see on the screen here. They were vetted based on quality of their equipment, customer service experience, their reputation, and integrity. So really key things that our community leaders thought were important for when they were choosing solar. And we know that there's just a lot of work to be done. And so we want you all to know that when you're designing your home and a fire resilient home, all electric, you can continue to lean on us to hopefully, we'll maybe start vetting heat pump installers and other technologies along the way. But I just want you all to have this resource and know you can ask us questions about these installers as well. I'll pass back to you, Rahul.
Great. Thanks, Charlotte. Okay, and then on to the last technology. So how do you get around? So here we're talking about electric vehicles. In my case, here in San Francisco, I have an electric cargo bike that I use to get the girls up and down the hills of San Francisco when they're willing to hang out with me. But how does it work? An all-electric EV or battery electric vehicle draws its power from a rechargeable battery instead of using gasoline or diesel fuel. And obviously, there's kind of full battery electric vehicles. There's also hybrid battery electric vehicles too that can kind of use a mix of gasoline and charging. So, obviously, the important thing to know here when you're prepping for this is to make sure that you have the charging capacity in your home too. I mean, of course, you can, plug it into a normal outlet, but for fast charging, which is what folks generally will want when they have a battery electric vehicle, it's good to make sure that you have a charger kind of built into your garage or wherever you're parking your car too. And ultimately, just to kind of reinforce some of the message we talked about at the beginning, we just fully recognize that, over the last few years, energy costs are really kind of increasingly hitting American households, and you're seeing prices start to go up. And that's true in the electricity side, and it's also true in the gas side. And actually, increasingly, gas prices are actually going up even faster than electricity prices. But, our policy team is working hard on trying to reduce all of those things, recognizing that these have real impacts on American households. But making good decisions, when you're rebuilding can hopefully help to reduce those costs as much as possible so that it feels like you're making great investments in the long term that increase, again, the comfort, the safety, the health of your homes, and also reducing your bills over time. And again, it's getting to a point where you're less and less reliant on fossil fuels and the volatility, the global volatility that's going to go in around those commodity prices as well. And again, just to reinforce, this really is kind of a job creation engine as well for communities, around, creating great, well-paying jobs for electricians and HVAC installers and things like that. So these are all the benefits of rebuilding a community to make sure that you have kind of great long-term stable jobs for folks to go along with the beautiful houses that will be rebuilt as well. And then finally, just want to really reinforce, all the technologies we've talked about. These are really proven technologies. These are not kind of leading edge things. Heat pump sales for the last 3 years have exceeded gas furnace sales. These are mainstream technologies that are working well across the country in all kinds of climates. Residential solar costs continues to decrease exponentially. Same thing with battery storage costs. And electric vehicles are increasing too. And so again, these ultimately what we're talking about are really just better technologies that have all these other benefits, but we're really talking about kind of getting to the next generation of technologies to make your house kind of as robust and future facing as possible. And with that, I really appreciate your time. You can always reach me with questions for anything that we don't answer today at Rahul@rewiringamerica.org, and Charlotte will have that contact information as well. And I'm now going to hand it off to my friend Zach at Boulder County to talk about his experience helping folks rebuild from the Marshall Fire.
Thanks, Rahul. Hello, everyone. Good to see you. So I was one of the folks that helped on basically what Resilient Palisades is trying to do for you all. That was my role after the Marshall Fire. And on December 30th, 2021, we lost 1,100 homes in the Marshall Fire. In the satellite shot, you can see how close the snow had gotten to Boulder County. And the day after the fire, it finally snowed. Rahul, next slide. So we're about 4 years on, and I thought you might be interested to know, just sort of see what progress has been like. So dotted bar across the top, that's the homes we lost in the fire. The gray or the yellow line is the rate of permit applications cumulative over time. So you see 6 months after the fire, we saw our first permit, and then you see that line shoot up. And then the green line is homes completed. So we didn't see our first home completed until about a year after the fire. And then we're tracking just about a year after permit, we're seeing those homes get completed throughout the last 4 years. So at this point, just shy of 4 years after the fire, 85% of the homes have been permitted for rebuild, and 75% of the rebuilds are complete. Next slide. What happened in terms of electrification and home performance? There's a lot on this pie chart. The two things to cue into are all of the shades of green indicate that 70% of homeowners rebuilding from the Marshall Fire built above code minimums for energy efficiency. So they found, reasons and value in making their home more comfortable, more resilient to wildfires, healthier, et cetera. There's a variety of different standards that they built to. That's not particularly important today. And then the orange slice that's sort of sticking out from this pie chart, we had 21% of homeowners build all electric. Next slide. So Rahul covered a lot of this already, so I won't spend too much time here, but I'll add, in addition to, the appliances that you're putting in your home, an electrified high-performance home also includes really high levels of insulation, an airtight envelope with no thermal bridges. Hopefully you're taking advantage of the orientation to the sun. You have high-performance windows, and with that good airtight envelope, you have heat recovery ventilation. So those are, we covered sort of the components, but what does it feel like to be in one of these homes? And we'll cover that in the next slide. So same home, all the same things. They are more comfortable in terms of temperatures. You've got your solar orientation right, you have high insulation, you have high performance windows, you don't have drafts coming in. All of that makes it more comfortable, as well as, your heat pump system runs more frequently than a traditional gas furnace would. That may sound like a bad thing, but that's actually a good thing because it's pumping out a little bit lower temperature air more consistently. And that washes the walls of your home with air, that conditioned air more frequently. It also filters your air more frequently. And when the walls of your home are warm, you feel more warm. So 60% of how we perceive temperature is radiant heat. So, if this wall behind me is cold, I will feel cold, even if the air temperature in the room is the same temperature. Next slide. Again, same home, all the same equipment. It's also healthier. So as Rahul said, you don't have gas leaks, you don't have combustion emissions, but you also have more fresh air and more filtered air. So again, having that frequently running HVAC system in your heat pump filters your air more times per hour, and that helps keep you healthier. Next slide. They're also more resilient because of the higher degrees of insulation and air sealing. They maintain temperature either in the summer or in the winter more consistently during power outages. Because of the airtight envelope and high performance windows, you don't have an ember penetration, so you're more resilient to wildfire. Having a simpler home shape also reduces the chance for ember collection. And I think, really one of the big things that resonated with folks out here in Colorado is when you have an airtight home with mechanically controlled ventilation, that heat recovery ventilation I talked about, if it's smoky outside, maybe there's smoke blowing in from somewhere else, or it's a high air pollution day, you can turn off your ventilation and you aren't bringing that pollution into your home. Traditionally built homes are very leaky. The air just sort of passes through gaps in windows and walls and things. And so, being able to control that ventilation mechanically and choose when you want that fresh air coming in, if it's healthy outside or not, is really a great advantage of these types of homes. Next slide. So I thought everybody, I'm sure, is interested in how much it costs. This was definitely a big question for us after the Marshall Fire. And I will say, homeowners experienced a wide range of costs from builders, from, it costing not anything more or costing less to just, wild estimates. And I want to talk a little bit about why that is. Next slide. So, in the center of the slide, we have your hard costs. What does the equipment actually cost? Soft costs, permitting, the engineering, et cetera, and then the profit markup for your builder. that all those things rolled together are your cost to build. Pretty simple, but one of the things that makes this not quite so simple is also you have your choices. Do you want marble countertops? Do you want a really complex roof line? These types of things add costs throughout the hard and soft costs. Oh, Rahul, we lost your slides.
Yeah, sorry, just bringing it back.
Yep.
I'll be there in a second. Sorry, give me one. Go ahead, Zach. I'll get this.
Sure. Okay. So I'll keep going. So those types of things add costs, and you should, make those choices based on what you want. It's totally natural. The other component is how familiar is the builder with building an all electric high performance home? How much do they want to do it? So locally here in Colorado, some of the wide range in costs we got for, high performance electrified homes had a lot to do with the familiarity of the builder, and, how committed they were to building this type of home. For example, if they haven't done it before, they might be a little more risky to them. They're going to price it a little bit higher to account for that risk. Or if they did it before and they didn't like the outcome, then they may price it higher for that reason too. And so at the end of the day, the builder's price is what their price is, but it may not reflect the real hard costs of actually putting the building together. So while Rahul's working on the slides, I'll just jump, can I share? Let me.
I think, I think it's back on, but can people see it?
We
Or
see your calendar.
Oh, that's not what we were intended. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not sure why it froze real quick. So let me try one more thing, and then otherwise we can switch over where Nick or you could share. Sorry, everybody.
Great.
For the challenge.
So all that is, while Rose got the slides back up. All right, now we see them. And if you can just go back one.
Great.
Perfect. Great. So, okay, Zach, all well and good. Like, we get it, costs are variable. But what did it really cost? So again, really hard to say because, each home is different. It has different finishing choices. But we did do a survey recently this year of builders who had built real homes in the Marshall Fire that had priced them out both for gas equipment and for electric equipment. So like real world costs from real world builders that actually built these homes at the end of the day. And you're seeing $6,000 price premium for building all electric, $6,500, $18,000. So that's before any incentives. Obviously, these are prices here in Colorado. We were still dealing with pandemic shortages and supply chain issues. Different area, different time. But that's a pretty good proxy, I think, for what you might see, real world costs in the Palisades area. And then I layered on a little bit of a preview here, the LADWP incentives, some of them that are available, and that yields, that it is actually, from some builders, if we transported the Colorado builders out to the Palisades, it would be cheaper to buy an all electric home from them with the available incentives. Or for the case of Diverge Homes, it's a little bit more. But these are small. Every dollar matters. I know from experience after the Marshall Fire, how tight money is and how little insurance covers, and so I don't want to minimize this. But a little bit less, a little bit more. That's kind of what you're looking at on, based on our experience at rebuilding from the Marshall Fire. So what else can you do to lower those costs? There's a lot going on in this graphic, but basically what it says, when stuff is in your head, that's the cheapest time to change it. As you start getting into the actual building of your home, any change orders at that point become much more expensive. So I definitely recommend, making design choices as early as you can together with your team while they're still theoretical and conceptual, rather than saving those for later down the road. Because if you end up changing your mind, it becomes expensive at that point. So other ways to lower costs, simpler design choices. So I talked about like a simple home shape. It doesn't have to be ugly. It doesn't have to be a box. But there's a phrase in the construction industry that more corners equals more dollars. So every corner you have on your roof, every additional corner you have inside your house, that requires additional framing and additional drywalling and additional wiring and ducting to get around it and all of those things. So the simpler home is a cheaper home. Finding a team with experience building the type of home that you want. If you think you want to go all electric and have a really high performance home, find a team that has that experience. Because if they don't have that experience, if they're unfamiliar with it, you might not get quite as good of an outcome. And also they may price it a little bit higher because they're unfamiliar with it. And then ensure that your team is building a home that meets all of the incentive requirements. So, we experienced some folks that, thought they were on the same page with their builders and that they were going to get all the incentives. And then unfortunately, got their home built to find out that they weren't actually on the same page on that. And then that was difficult conversation between them and their builder. And then finally, I just want to point to a website that we built, which is specific to the Marshall Fire. And you can go to the next slide, Rahul. That's rebuildingbetter.org. Some of this content on there is specific to the Marshall Fire, but a lot of it, as you can see, sort of those chapters 1 through 6 there, lays out a lot of the principles that I talked about, goes into more detail than I had time to cover today. Obviously, the rebates and incentives in chapter 3 won't apply to you. They're just what's available for the Marshall Fire, but the rest of the content, you may find interesting to look through and gives a little more context on this information. And with that, we'll pass it over to Maychelle and LADWP.
Thank you so much, Zach. Oh, I feel like you could just leave up that one slide and I could just mic drop. I'm done. Thank you so much. Yes, this is where incentives are so important. My name is Maychelle. I'm a manager in the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power's Distributed Energy Solutions Division. Thank you so much for joining us. Your LADWP is really dedicated to our customers. I don't know if you know this, but we have one of the nation's largest portfolio of program offerings anywhere. And so this is all built through the funding that you provide in your bills. So you pay towards this. So I tell all my customers, make sure you take advantage of that and take that money back, because that's the money that you invested in yourself. And that money is available to you. So please take advantage of all the incentives that are available to you. Next slide. So HOME-LA, this is our program that we built specifically for the rebuilding. It's our high performance, optimized, modern electrification for Los Angeles program. That's a mouthful. It provides financial incentives for residential and low-rise multifamily new construction projects to build all electric. That's 3 stories or below. So as I mentioned, it's a pilot program. Right now it's limited to homeowners who properties were either partially or entirely destroyed through the January 2020 wildfires, 25 wildfires to rebuild. Hopefully later on, we'll be able to expand the program to the rest of the program as additional resources become available. There's one of 2 paths that you can look at when considering the program. We have our whole home electrification path, which provides bundled incentives. So you would have to go all electric throughout your home. That includes electric only space heating and cooling, water heating, cooking and clothes drying. If you do choose to go this route, you can also be eligible for a whole home battery incentive, as well as ultra low global warming potential heat pump water heater incentives. That's a lot, but that is available to you. The great thing, if you do choose to go this route, there may be additional incentives. However, if you're not sure about going all electric, so you might still be on the fence and you're not exactly ready, or maybe your home might be large enough where you have additional equipment needs, you might want to consider our express path. So the express path provides incentives for the installation and purchase and installation of all electric equipment, either purchased individually or in combination. So depending on what your needs are, you can choose either path. But then again, like I mentioned previously, if you do choose to go all electric, there may be additional incentives through the California Energy Commission's California Electric Homes Program, CalEHP. So on top of the money that you could receive from us, you could layer their incentives as well. However, you have to please note that there are additional requirements to participate in that program, such as capping all of your gas lines, as well as installing segregated circuits for your different end uses. So that might apply. I'm going to post the link to that program inside of our chat here. So if you're interested, you can visit their webpage to learn more and to read the details into the additional requirements. Another great thing, in addition to the incentives, they also provide technical assistance. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to them. Next slide. I know I got this question inside the chat. So for existing homes that are looking to go all electric, we also have our consumer rebate program. So that provides incentives, again, for the purchase and installation of energy efficient equipment, as well as electrification equipment that exceeds state and federal requirements. You can receive incentives for a central heat pump HVAC system, as well as heat pump water heaters. So you could see right there, that's $300 per ton for your heat pump HVAC. And then there are incentives as well for the heat pump water heater. Oh, I didn't list that there. I apologize. But the website's right there with the link to all of the incentive rates as well as the requirements. In addition, in this program, you can also receive incentives for energy efficiency measures. So that could be Energy Star qualified windows, cool roofs, heat pump, other HVAC measures. I believe there's one for pool pump and motor. So there's a few other measures that are offered under that program that you may want to look at. You can visit their website, www.ladwp.com/CRP. Next slide. And lastly, if you have an electric vehicle, as was discussed earlier, you can also look into our residential EV charger rebate program. So that offers rebates for to help offset the cost of purchasing and installing chargers for electric vehicles. So as you can see here, you can get up to $1,000 for the purchase of a qualified level 2 charger and an additional $250 for the installation of a dedicated EV meter. And if you're an income eligible customer, you might be able to get an additional $500. At the bottom of that slide, you could see that website, www.ladwp.com/EV. Right there, they have a list of all of the qualified products. So if you go to that website, you can learn more about which products qualify for that. I know today's discussion really focused on electrification, but please know that LADWP offers several other programs, for incentives on a variety of different energy and water. Don't forget, we also offer water conserving incentives for water conserving devices as well as assistance programs. So if you have any questions, you can always visit our webpage at www.ladwp.com. or give us a call at 1-800-DWP. I know that was a super condensed version of all of this information, but please, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them in the chat now. We'll try our best to answer them. If not, I can get your information, definitely get back to you.
Thank you so much, Maychelle. And I just wanted to touch here a little bit about some of the other incentives that are available. Potentially, I see in the chat somebody that does have a home still standing. There are some programs that are available from California Electric Homes Program, rebates for all across California. There's also the California Energy Smart Homes Program. This is specifically for PG&E, SoCalGas, and SC&E residents. And so I know most of us are LADWP, but we wanted to just let you all know that that's here. And then, of course, the federal tax credits which will be expiring at the end of this year. So it is a pretty fast deadline to try and take advantage of. But if you register for our newsletter, you'll get information about these deadlines and incentives all the time for us each month. And then the last resource I want to highlight on the right of this page, Switches On, is a great resource to be able to use to find all the different rebates that you might be eligible for within your zip code. So if you scan that QR code and go to the website, you'll be able to figure out exactly what your home type and your zip code is eligible for. Goodness. With that, I think we'll open it up to some questions. The first one I saw in the chat that I believe was answered in the chat, but I thought it would be great to highlight for everybody, is can you overview how going all electric will impact the transformers we would need for neighborhoods undergrounding their power lines? Does this increase the amps specifically and require bigger, more transformers in the neighborhood? So, Rana, do you mind just speaking to that again?
Hi. So we know that potentially going all electrical will mean that we need an increased capacity within the Palisades area. So our design teams are planning for that. So then that's why we are moving from the 4.8 kV up to the 12 kV to be able to serve the community in a reliable manner.
Thank you. And then a follow-up was I'm getting a bit of backlash. Do you mind muting Rana real quick? Yeah, sorry. I think I couldn't speak at the same time. With the Huntington Palisades already underground, but with the older 4.8 kV, what steps going forward will LADWP be doing in the Huntington to upgrade to 12K, and who is going to pay for that?
For the steps that we're going to be taking is we already started looking at designing it out, and pretty much it will require us to switch out most of the equipment that's there to be able to handle the increase in capacity. So who will pay for it, that I cannot answer. That would be up to my managers. So I'll try to take that question back and get you an answer.
Thank you. And then the last one from the chat I just want to highlight was for LADWP, the HOME-LA program. Can you get all the whole home incentives and keep a gas heater for a pool or spa?
Yes, you may. However, if you want to go for the layered incentives with the CalEHP program, you won't be eligible to do so. We don't have the gas capping requirement under the LADWP program, but the CalEHP program does. So just keep that in mind in case you are thinking about trying for both. And I'll get Peter's contact information and see what I can do. I'm so sorry, Peter, that you went through that. I'll see if we can make that situation a little bit better.
That's great. I'm glad we can connect you all here. With that, I think if anybody wants to raise their hand and ask any follow-up questions, we invite you to do so.
I see one in the chat. Can we apply for incentives if we haven't started building yet?
Yes, you may apply for incentives early on. So it's up to you. It depends on how far along you are. So applying early, the benefit of it is that you are saving your place in line, you're saving the funds early. However, of course, you need the information regarding what you're going to be purchasing. So it's a little bit, you won't have that information yet. And so you don't have to worry about it. If you want to apply later, that's okay. But if you do want to already, reserve your funds, please do so. Go ahead and apply early. It's up to you. It's available though, either or.
I see we have one. I understand that DWP is charging a very large amount to connect a new rebuild to DWP. Why is that? Why is this not being waived for fire victims?
Rana, maybe I'll chime in on this. This is Yaman. How's everyone doing? I'm a manager of the UROC Palisades. Previously, I was in distribution planning and EV programs in my previous lifetime. So just with regards to the charges that our new business and customer service department is collecting. So right now, we are waiving all charges associated with temporary services that were initiated before the fire, but then were requested again. Right now, we don't really have authority to waive charges. We have something called the Rules Governing Water and Power Services that's approved by a board and and council essentially. So that rule requires us to collect back for infrastructure to provide these permanent services or temporary services. So, however, our management is cognizant of that. They have been getting that feedback from residents and contractors that are rebuilding. And we're going to be working through the mayor's office and council to see what can be done with that regard. So it's not, we are definitely collecting for charges right now because that's what our mandate and rules require us to do. But we're going to see what can be done. And, with regards to the portion, to the question asked earlier, as far as, who's going to pay for the undergrounding, I mean, ultimately, the way that DWP works, right, is that everything we do, whether it's a capital or O&M, it's ultimately collected from our ratepayers, right? But what we're trying to do is we are applying to several grant programs, both through CalOES, Office of Emergency Services, and FEMA, to try to cover the majority of that, so we don't have to, raise the rates to to pay for the undergrounding project. So I think, yeah, everything is still developing. I know residents are moving quickly, and we're trying to, provide them the temporary and permanent services that they're requesting as soon as possible. But just know that we're doing everything we can to accommodate the, and lower impact on costs. And just to, so you understand, the undergrounding project is going to cost upwards of like $800 million if we do it to the full extent. So that's, doing about 80 miles of 12 kV distribution lines. And, that's, I mean, obviously we're fronting the cost of that and trying to get grants, right? So in a way, DWP is fronting that cost on behalf of the community. So the only really the cost that they're having to bear is the cost of that service, right, to connect the connection fees, and then connection charges, and then the preparing for undergrounding, right? And that's really building the conduit from their panel up to the street, right? Because we don't do work on private property, and we're not typically responsible for anything past our meter, right? So hopefully that just kind of chimes a light, and hopefully we can report back in a few months on any ability to waive interconnection charges in the future.
Thank you so much for providing us with that context, especially back to that first question about cost too. We're so grateful that so many LADWP people could be here today to help us answer these questions. I see one more in the chat, and then we'll probably, okay, Rahul already answered. I'll just read it out loud so everybody can see and hear, and give some time for other questions to chime in. Is a venting system still needed with an induction stove? Rahul, do you want to just?
Yeah, sure. And just, yeah, as I said in the chat, no, the stove itself does not require a vent, but people often tend to have kind of a fume hood as they would with any cooking situation, just for the natural things that happen with any stovetop when you're cooking things. And there's often smoke or smells that come from that. So it's still often a good idea to have it, but you don't need it for the stove itself.
Charlotte, I need to add. I'm so sorry. I forgot. Jerry, I forgot. We have a heat pump water heater for pools and spa incentive. So while we don't require you for the whole home bath, we have a separate incentive for it, so you can go all electric. So yeah, if you're considering, please yeah, think about a heat pump water heater for your pool, and then you can get one for each if you have two. So you can get a separate incentive for each one. So it's not listed yet. I don't think we have the incentive amount, but it is coming soon. So keep in touch if you're interested.
Thank you. That's great to learn. We have another question here about undergrounding, saying they've heard that everyone on your block needs to agree to go underground. If not, will that delay our street from going underground? Somebody from LADWP has like a general update maybe they would like to share on the underground process. Love to hear.
Well, I don't know if Yaman's still on, but from what I understand it is that, yeah, it's gonna have to come from the community, everyone kind of agreeing that this is the direction that they want to go in. So this is why we've been doing community outreach and trying to make everyone understand the importance of going underground, as well as not the pros and cons of it. We've done multiple presentations on it to have the community understand that, reducing poles, allowing you to have better, pretty much to beautify. Part of it is like making sure that lower fire risk, reducing fire risk and hazards from having poles up, as well as putting everything much nicer underground. So, but yeah, if there is so we're trying to reduce the amount of delays. So once we do start the undergrounding, we're hoping that no one is going to push back too hard from the community, and we've seen responses from different from certain neighborhoods, which are very positive sign that they want to really get this project done as well. And I've seen a lot of support from the Palisades, and I am happy that that you guys are receiving it so positively.
Thank you. Was somebody coming off mute to ask? Sorry.
Oh, I was, this is Yaman again. I just want to add, yeah, I covered it really well, Rana. I just want to add that we will, we're planning an upcoming webinar in second week of November. So I think in the plan for that webinar is to really go into more details on how we plan to implement undergrounding, and we'll kind of cover what the undergrounding policy is going to be and how we're going to, treat streets that, don't comply with the requirements of undergrounding.
That's helpful to know. I think that answers your question, Luis, about needing to get neighbors on board. So hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll hear exactly how we can get our streets undergrounded if there isn't majority there, or going forward with that process. And I know we just have one more minute. Wanted to ask Rahul if you could just pop up our last slide real quick. I wanted to share a little bit about Resilient Palisades next events that we're going to be hosting. We know we're on Zoom today, but we'd love to get in person and speak with you all there. We're going to be holding a rebuilding certificate training with USGBC as our partners, and then we'll be present at the Resource Expo and have our friends at LADWP there as well. That's on October 25th in Santa Monica. And then November 15th, we ask you all to hold the date. We're going to be having a community rebuilding celebration and learning all about how we can go electric there as well. It should be in the Palisades or nearby in Santa Monica. And so we ask you all to stay tuned. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us, coming together as a community and just learning how we can create a more safe and sustainable community for your families and for everybody around us. Palisades really can be a wonderful model for the rest of the country to learn from. And you all do have a part to play in that. So thank you. I guess we will close this out.
Very
Yay.
good. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your
Thank
time
you all.
again. Thank you.